Alrighty, hey everyone, welcome back to another video here. Sorry it's been like a really long time. I don't even know if I'm gonna post this video as my first video back, but it's been a few weeks since I've even worked on this car, and that's just because, you know, my cat that you guys have seen in previous videos. Here she comes, call her, Lee.
We have a guest. He's very concerned.
She's not doing the greatest right now. She's quite a bit older, so, you know, I've really just been trying to prioritize all of my free time with just spending time with her and making sure she's comfortable and happy. So I do kind of apologize on that, and I did kind of realize too, like, just where I'm at with my life right now, I'd rather just like focus on getting more progress done on this rather than making a video every single week. Just kind of going through, I don't know, I just got some extra clarity and I want to put out better content, and sometimes better content translates to less is more type of thing. But anyways, so I'm here today. As you can see, there are no... Shoot, that's not good. Why that chipped? There are no wheels on the car right now. I had my 14-inch Torq Thrusts that were on here for quite a while, and I liked them. I mean, they were just 14x6. They were not anything fancy or special whatsoever. They were also like 2007 era production American racing, so they were like made in China. Like, they were just nothing great, and the tires were also still from 2007, so they were really old. They were in good shape. They weren't dry rotted, but just not something that I would want to run long term. And I also want to leave it open for me to potentially convert the car either fronts only or fronts and rear to disc brake. I haven't decided if I want to do the rears, and I haven't even decided, do I want to just do the factory style Kelsey Hayes kit, or do I want to do like a Willwood setup or something like that. So I wanted to leave things open. I wanted to get rid of some stuff I had. It was spring, you know, and that's peak selling used wheel season, as you all probably know. So I decided I just sold my 14s like instantly, and I used some of the money that I got from that to start ordering 15-inch wheels and tires for my car. So, as I came to find out, even if you want to run a skinnier wheel than a lot of other people have done in the past, you can still run into a lot of clearance issues right now, because apparently, you know, and this is specifically going into modern Torq Thrust production, apparently there's very limited back spacing and offset options right now. Now, if you don't know anything about wheels, what this translates to you as a Mustang owner is, as you may know, the tubs in here, the factory tubs, you don't have a lot of room in here to begin with, especially with the length of the axle assembly and whatnot. So you really can't fit a whole lot in here to begin with, and you can't really fit a whole lot in the front because of the shape of the fenders, the valence, and, you know, just all of the suspension going on. It wasn't designed to fit really wide wheels front and back. Not many pony cars of this vintage were. That was just the name of the game. But even more so nowadays, due to the limited sizes being produced, because your back spacing here is what controls, you know, how much of your wheel is sitting behind, you know, the flange, right? Because they're limiting just the amount of size options you have here, that in turn translates to narrowing your tire selection down quite a bit into even skinnier options. So back in the day, it wasn't uncommon to find like a 15x8 or a 14x8 that would fit the rear of this car, and even some people allegedly had success with running those in the front because of the back spacing that was offered. Nowadays, if you want a 15 by 8 in a Ford Bolt pattern, you can only get it with a 4.5-inch backspace, which to my understanding, you cannot run on the front of these cars. And in conjunction with that, can't really want a super wide tire with them either, which is why I have this little guy here. And what this does is essentially simulates the exact tire and wheel size that I'm trying to run and verifies whether or not it's going to work for me as close as possible without me mounting and balancing a wheel and pulling the trigger on the wheel sizes. So for those of you who have searched, Mustang forums for years now on what size to get, it's essentially useless because all of those posts, they never dive into what the offset of their wheels are or the back spacing. So there are tons and tons of forums where people say they successfully ran square setups, they successfully ran 15 by 7, 15 by 8, 15 by 8.5, what have you. And it's just every single time there's no other information divulged. So there's so many useless forum posts on these things. And on top of it too, a lot of the forum posts, they do mention the tire size they were able to clear and run. And unfortunately, many of those tire sizes that people have ran in the past 15 years or so are actually no longer being produced. Take, for instance, a 205/65/15 is no longer produced by one of the most popular tires that people ever run on these cars, the BF Goodrich radial TAs. Right now, the only choice you have is either a 205/60/15 or jumping up into a 215/60/15. Or maybe they offer the 215 as a 65/15 as well. Don't quote me on that. But the point is that it's random tire sizes here and there that are offered and discontinued, and it's kind of just a mess. It's kind of, if you want to run a period correct wheel setup, you're either running Mickey Thompson's, M&H's, Goodyear Blue Streak Blue Dots, which are like $3,000, any other bias ply, polyglass, what have you, again, that you're going to spend like $1,500 on and it's going to handle like crap, or just going with the Cooper Cobras or the radial TAs. No one else really makes anything. Vredestein, I think is how you say it. I should know that because we use them all the time at the shop, but I don't know how to pronounce them. They are starting to offer more 15-inch sizes. The problem I've run into with those is that they kind of focus more on tire sizes that begin with a 1 rather than jumping into 2s and mid-2s. And also, they don't necessarily offer just as high of a sidewall as what you would get from factory. For me, what I have really been looking for, and I've been undecided on for months, was that I knew for sure I wanted to run a period correct size sidewall, and what that is for these cars is 27 inches. Some people say that's way too tall. I say if that's way too tall, then you have the wrong era car, buddy. And if you want a lower sidewall, why don't you just get a Fox body at that point, because they had lower sidewalls. So for me, I do want more modern compounds. I would love to have something like a Toyo Proxy R888. I would love to have that in a taller sidewall in a 15, but no one out there wants to make that. No one out there that wants to run a tall sidewall wants modern compounds like I do. So unfortunately, I just went ahead and I got the radial TAs because I knew that even if I didn't like them, and even if someone did produce my dream tire, at least I could sell these radial TAs. So I was super close to pulling the trigger on M&H's muscle car drags because I felt like that was going to be a little bit more of a softer compound, which I knew obviously would end up wearing out a lot faster, but it would be a really cool looking tire. It seems like the compounds on those are, despite being a bias ply type of setup, it seemed like the compound on those is supposed to be pretty good. but they are like super expensive. Put it this way, they were more than double than the radial TAs. So again, my thought process was, well, if nothing else, at least let me buy something just so I can figure out what size I can fit under this car and just keep this process going, especially after spending what I spent on urgent care for my cat. And then from there, after, you know, I move on to everything else and I make all the progress I make, if I decide I don't like what, you know, the radial TAs offer, I know I could always sell them pretty quickly to any other Mustang person out there, and they will be very content with it, and I can move on to something else. So what I have here is I have Percy's wheelwright diagram. So this took me probably about a half hour. I set this up when I was drinking my morning coffee, right? So as I was just having breakfast and doing my thing inside, I was at the kitchen table and I just started mocking this up. So right now it's set to 15-inch diameter. So you set that with this guy here, right? And you have a little carve out which indicates, you know, where you have to be on this ruler. All right, it's got all these different cutouts here. So no matter if you have a Chevy or Ford or what have you, you know, you should be able to bolt this into your hub and get that all set up. And then obviously up here you have not only your back spacing, you also have your width, and somewhere else I think was also offset. Maybe not though. I don't know. I'm kind of lost in the sauce lately. It's been a really long week, so I'm kind of exhausted. The other crucial thing to do as well, and I highly recommend going onto TireRack.com for this. That is going to find the spec sheet for whatever tires you have picked out, because you have to reference something. You gotta have some point of reference to be able to mock this up. So I chose the radial TAs that I had already bought, and I had already bought them because I knew they should fit without a doubt for sure under this car. It's more so about just controlling what wheels I mount them to. So I kind of probably went in reverse, but it is what it is. So you want to go onto the spec sheet and you want to look up section width, which is like the cross hatching of the tire, sidewall to sidewall, and then the tread ballooning. Okay, so that's section width up here, and then up here's tread width. And then of course too, you want to calculate the total height of the tire and then divide that by 2, because you're going to measure from the center of your hub here, right? So that's half of your total tire height. So you want to do all of that, dial in all of these measurements, and each time you dial in one measurement, you're going to have to check it with everything else, because like this set screw here controls like 3 different measurements. So as soon as you pull one, like you're probably going to pull this one only controls 1, so that's good. But then when you modify this, all of your tire profile here will shimmy and change and shift and whatnot. So it might take you like a half hour to set this up, but once you have it set up, use a tape measure to reference and verify, you know, that this is your center line and that you're measuring that from your back spacing correctly and that this is your total width and yada yada. So yeah, here we go. So I have this all dialed in, and we're gonna find where this wants to go, which that was really easy. And then somewhere behind me, I have lug nuts, and we're just gonna put 3 on just so we know that we're evenly seated. And the problem with this is that you're not able to put all of the weight on the wheel because there is no wheel. So there is definitely still some level of suspension dependency that you can sort of eyeball, and you can sort of predict what it will or won't do. But you won't know for sure. And a big thing I hear about that is really common to these cars is that you might not have fitment issues in the rear of these cars, at least up until you have passengers in the back seat. Once you have passengers in the back seat, allegedly it is very, very easy for any type of rear tire setup to rub, and I kind of can see why, because, you know, like this whole quarter panel design and the inner housing here is not very deep in here. So, for example, what I can tell you right now is that it does, and also too, right, you got to keep in mind that I hands made the shape, so it's obviously not perfect, and it's a little different than what the real thing is going to be. But looking at it right now, I can pretty confidently tell you that, I don't know what that was, that it seems like, where is my official straight line here? It seems like I will have to roll the fenders to a certain degree. And that's just because of this inner lip that we all have here on our cars. Trying to find something that's a straight enough edge here to mock this up with. I mean, right now it looks like it will not interfere, but once you get the weight on it and you get all of my drooping leaf spring suspension goodness back here, it definitely might over potholes. Now, I don't think I necessarily want to trim the lip back yet. I think for now, just rolling it slightly will get me where I need to get. There's two ways I look at rolling fender lips, and the first way is just, instead of it being just like a hard 90 edge that you have a tire that's gonna, you know, smash directly into, sometimes all you need is just a little curve. Right? So now instead of it being like this every time it hits it, if it's like this, sometimes that's all you need. Other times, if you're doing, you know, race car stuff and you're doing stuff that's more aggressive, what I feel is more appropriate is to like completely, like if this is the outer, you know, the flare here, the little body line, if you have that, to essentially go as close and tucked in as possible to make an organic, again, compound curve that just kind of helps disperse the tire back and doesn't catch on an edge or anything. And what I recommend people do when they do that, if you have to go that aggressively with your roll, then you should, number one, you should chase the channel in here with some type of scrubbing, whether it's wire wheel, whether it's like a rust, like those like wax plasticky wheels, whether it's something like that. You want to get in here and you want to clean that channel out, because there's a good chance that you're never really going to be able to clean that channel out well again. And so you don't want to have, you know, salt and corrosive stuff stuck in here that won't be able to escape, that'll eventually eat the metal out. So if you do have to do that, I highly recommend getting a drill, getting a wire, something, cleaning this whole channel out using alcohol. Like, I'm talking like you're prepping it like you want to paint it. And if there is no paint, you should definitely self-etch prime. Then from there, roll your fender, and what I recommend people do is after you roll it and you press that lip up as tight and flush as possible to the body line up here, I would hit it with a pass of brushable seam sealer. And that's to accomplish two things. That's just to, you know, keep stuff from getting in and getting out at that point, and also to just to kind of keep it a little bit cleaner in here. And if you do ever end up rubbing again, the idea is that you'll rub through the seam sealer, and eventually it'll actually be easy to see where it is that you're rubbing, and it can make it easier if you have to do another pass with the roller at some point. And you can always seam seal back over again if you need to. So that's my take on that. And I think all I'm going to do now is order a 15 by 8 for the rear here. The 15 by 8s that American Racing is currently making right now, I believe, have a back spacing of 4.5 inches, 0 millimeters offset. And again, this is set up to be a 225/70 15. That's what all of this mock-up is, as a good BF Goodrich radial TA. So yeah, here's to hoping that I set this up actually right and that this is accurately what my measurement is. This wire here, I forgot to mention, is just like electrical, like wiring. So if you don't have that, I highly recommend using that as your shaper, your tire shaper here. And yeah, so now I feel a lot more comfortable with buying American Racing's 15 by 8 option. I kind of knew that for it to be on as many of the Mustang specific retailers' websites that are out there, that it must surely still fit. But again, there are so many forum posts where people say things don't fit, things do fit, things don't fit with skinny tires. It just kind of raises red flags. So if nothing else, looking at my car, the way my car is and how my suspension is, I can verify here that it will be hard. It will be hard to get this wheel and tire. I'm gonna have to jack it up pretty high to get that out. It's gonna be a tight squeeze. But hopefully it'll give me the look I'm after. So here's to hoping, and here's to hoping I don't actually need to trim any of this back, but maybe rather just roll it slightly. So thanks for watching. I hope this helps you guys. Just for ha-has, I'm gonna put this on the front and see what this does, but I can't because none of my front suspension is on. All right, I guess 15 by 7 is the way I'm going for the front then. Thanks, guys.